Our journey begins with the trio hurtling from the skies. In a moment of panic, Faye turns to Pearl, questioning if she can employ her teleportation abilities. Pearl, with the finesse of a comedic genius, explains that her teleportation range is a mere 30 meters, rendering it useless at such altitude. Licia, in a desperate bid to calm the situation, grasps Pearl and Faye, assuring them that descending slowly will solve everything. And so, they embark on their gradual descent, only for Faye to sense an impending danger. In a valiant yet futile attempt, Licia throws a kick, but they are blindsided and crash land. Faye and Pearl land roughly on their behinds, while Licia, the master of falls, manages a more dignified descent. If you prefer not to land on your rear, subscribe to our channel for divine blessings. Before they know it, they find themselves atop the Ouroboros, and thus, the game begins. Faye tries to reassure Pearl, asserting that everything is fine, and then turns to the group Pearl is entangled with, introducing themselves and proposing an exchange of information. A man named Orvan Miskets responds, stating their constant need for assistance, and introduces himself as the captain of Team Inferno. He mentions they're down by 4 already. 3 couldn't handle the fall and returned to the real world, while the other was snatched by a flying whale. When Pearl asks about their adversaries, Orvan drops the bombshell. The arcane court dubs them Leviathans, waiting for humans to land on the Ouroboros's back to attack. They are up against an unbeatable deity. It couldn't get any worse. If they lose again, they retire. However, Orvan rallies his troops, reminding them that their battle is broadcast worldwide, urging them not to show weakness. Suddenly, Faye spots the Ouroboros's Meep, but the Meep warns them that explaining is futile. Faye seizes the Meep, questioning the game the Ouroboros is playing. The Meep reveals it's a taboo word game. If they make it say a certain word, they win. Pearl asks for the word, only to receive a cryptic response. Discovering the forbidden word is part of the game, and it changes each round. The victory condition, make the Ouroboros utter the taboo word. So far, the defeat condition had been the defeat of all participants. Faye's mind is blown, wondering if this bizarre structure is still part of the horn. It's practically a skyscraper. The Ouroboros stretches a whopping 10 meters, towering over all other gods. According to their intel, there are usually clues on its head. Suddenly, a section of the area becomes electrified, catching them off guard. The Meep reveals it's a random trap. If they don't uncover the taboo word, they're all stuck. And so, they begin throwing out words like sky, cloud, and horn. Licia is convinced the forbidden word must be related to the game. Pearl starts tossing out words like scale, leviathan, and electric shock. Faye ponders, and the Meep chirps in, claiming they've already said the taboo word. Orvan sees through the ruse. When the trio suffered an impact on the Ouroboros's horn, they uttered ouch, a word they've now said twice. The electric trap activates once more, indicating they've figured it out and should leave promptly. They proceed cautiously, with Pearl questioning if the god understands human language. Faye reckons it probably doesn't speak. Making the Ouroboros say ouch wasn't meant literally. They'd try various tactics first. Pearl asks what the plan is, and Faye declares they'll try to make the god say ouch by stomping on the ground vigorously, but it's Faye himself who ends up saying ouch. To Pearl, watching Faye stomp on the Ouroboros was like seeing an ant try to tackle an elephant. Meanwhile, Orvan instructs his entire team to concentrate their power in one spot, and they all comply. All members of Team Inferno unleash their attacks at once, pooling their strength, but to no avail. Licia steps up next, focusing all her might into creating a fireball and smashing it into the Ouroboros. Faye frets over Licia exerting too much force, fearing things could spiral out of control. Nevertheless, Licia strikes the Ouroboros with all her might, flames billowing through the air. Sadly, one member of Team Inferno falls prey to a leviathan, but thanks to Lecia's efforts, the electric trap dissipates. Faye seems to have had a premonition, and Licia apologizes to the team, taking full responsibility. Orvan graciously accepts her apology. However, there were no signs of the Ouroboros emitting any sounds. Faye speculates that this is a game of historical wisdom. They won't win unless they figure out how to make the god say ouch. Meep had conveniently forgotten to mention a secret rule, causing one member of Team Inferno to lose their temper because Meep hadn't disclosed it. Meep apologizes, but Faye reassures him, saying it's all good now that he spilled the beans. Licia speaks up, asking about the secret rule, and it turns out that the rule is if they do something specific, something will happen. That's secret rule number 1. When they enact rule number 1, they'll be able to do something temporary. Faye gets it, and Pearl adds that the Leviathans, the god's lackeys, have been tailing them the whole time. Faye sees them as prey, but Pearl, ever the optimist, reassures reassures him by saying she's not exactly appetizing and then gives Faye a comforting hug. Faye tells her to relax since they'll only get caught if they fall. But then he notices Leshia's eyes ablaze and Faye realizes there's something even weirder than a leviathan after Pearl. Leshia explains that even in the era of ancient magic, the court's greatest sage said that timid women had a charm that surpassed even the gods' magic. Faye questions if it was really a sage who said that. Leshia marches over to Pearl, urging her to show her good side to the folks trailing them. If she keeps whimpering, they'll think she hasn't changed at all. Pearl agrees, admitting Leshia's got a point, and now she can't afford to falter. Leshia tells her to buck up and then asks if she can run. Pearl confirms she can, so Leshia initiates a search and off they go, running together. Faye finds it all very odd. Pearl and Leshia reach the tail. Leshia points out that Thorn looks mighty suspicious. Faye doesn't disagree, thinking the scale or whatever it is seems prominent. Pearl then figures it out. This game is about making the Ouroboros say ouch. In that case, the piece with the differently colored scale is its weak spot, and the thorn is a defense to keep them from getting close. Faye's got a bad feeling about this, but suggests they wait. However, Pearl interrupts, stating if they hit the weak spot, the Ouroboros will feel pain, yell ouch, and then give up. Faye realizes they've stumbled into a problem since Pearl assumes things solo, just like Miranda had mentioned, so Faye decides to give it a shot, telling Pearl to attack. She eagerly obliges, thrilled at the chance to take on an unbeatable god. Faye, as a precaution, advises her to retreat immediately after striking. Orvan interrupts, wondering what Pearl's up to, and she tells him to sit tight and watch. Then she goes for the scale. As Faye expected, Pearl lands a hit. He asks her how she'd feel if someone suddenly whacked her on the head, and she retorts that she'd be mad. Then Leshia jumps to Pearl's defense. The god unleashes a barrage of lasers, claiming some members of Team Inferno. It's a trap. Pearl's super bummed she couldn't be useful to everyone, but Faye tells her to chill. If it weren't for her, he'd be the one testing the waters. Even if he got hit, he wouldn't pin the blame on her. Faye tells everyone that all they can do now is move forward, being aware that there are more traps, and most importantly, not to lay into a teammate who screws up. Faye continues, telling Orvan that he believes this is the path to victory, as per secret rule number 1. Orvan disagrees, pointing out that one wrong step and they're all toast. Faye retorts that only 4 have fallen, but if the Ouroboros truly wanted to, they'd have a lot more victims. Leshia agrees, noting that it doesn't make sense for hundreds of lights to miss so many players. It's very suspicious, that's why it seemed like a trap, hitting only a few. Orvan asks what they intend to do now, and Faye says they'll figure out the second rule of the game, though he has no idea what it could be. Orvan thinks he's joking. Faye doesn't care if it takes them ages, they just need to reach the goal. Faye stops to ponder what they could do with secret rule number 2. The weird part for him is that it's temporary. He wonders what they haven't tried yet. One member of Team Inferno pipes up, saying they can't take it anymore. Winning seems impossible. Another member mentions that the Arcane Court allows quitting without reasons when it comes to the Ouroboros. Orvan frets because they have members who've lost twice already, and the same member who thinks it's impossible to beat the Ouroboros blames Pearl for messing them up 6 months ago. Without that total defeat, they could have stood a chance against the Ouroboros now. Pearl apologizes, and Orvan blames her for their encounter with the Ouroboros, asking why she was chasing after them. Leshia tells everyone to shut it, calling them out as damned fools, saying they relish humiliating a woman like that. She tells them they're a nuisance, and if they're uncomfortable, they can leave because she can send them back to the real world. They ask if it's unfair for a former goddess to defend a human, and Leshia brushes it off, saying she's done with this. They're so clueless her anger has evaporated. She's not talking about discord between them and Pearl. Her anger stems from their senseless emotions ruining a serious game. It was supposed to be an exhilarating game just for kicks, but they were too darn tense to enjoy themselves. Faye was the only human truly having a blast, pondering over what the second rule could be. Then it hits him like a sack of bricks, and he declares he's gonna tick off the Ouroboros again. Orvan thinks it's a ludicrous idea, likely to result in more victims, but Faye promises victory in return. So if Team Inferno bites the dust, Faye wants them to watch the whole shebang in the real world. Faye calls on Leshia and asks her to whack the Ouroboros with all her might, and she does just that, triggering the laser again, with Leshia shielding both Faye and Pearl from its wrath. And then Faye cracks the code of the second rule. Turns out, the Leviathans were just neutral monsters, also miffed at the gods' attacks. Faye starts running with Pearl, and then hops onto one of the Leviathans, causing the Ouroboros to stir. Pearl realizes because Faye has cracked the Ouroboros's game. Rule number 1 was that attacking the Ouroboros's tail would prompt a counterattack, while rule number 2 was that when rule number 1 happened, for just a moment, they could use the Leviathan. Meep is over the moon because it's the first time anyone's reached the final part. Now they need to find the Ouroboros's true weak spot. For Faye, it's underneath. He reckons the Ouroboros hides its eyes on the underside of its body, and to make it hurt, they'll have to destroy those eyes. Until the Ouroboros launches a laser and destroys a Leviathan, revealing that the two eyes were actually a defense system. Faye figures they need to reach it without being seen. Leshia hops from Leviathan to Leviathan, while Faye asks Pearl to listen up. They kick off the plan, climbing up with the other Leviathans. Then Faye jumps from one Leviathan to another, actually trying to lure the Ouroboros. Leshia finally attacks the god, but she's hit, though she's already dealt a blow. Faye then decides to make a beeline for the Ouroboros's eye, and when he reaches it, he asks Pearl to open the portal. So, the Ouroboros's laser ends up hitting itself, and it lets out an ouch. In the end, everything works out, and Pearl pays off the debt in spades, facing off against the Ouroboros alongside Faye's trio. And then the Ouroboros pops up, giving Faye props, calling him Little Human, and handing over a fragment of its eye. Since the Ouroboros lost for the first time, it's a special reward. The effect of that item is that Faye can summon the Ouroboros. It'll think up an even tougher game next time, so they'll play again later.